Yo, what's going on, guys? Evan Tanaka here, back with another video. In today's video, it is I Rate and Improve Your Team, episode number 16, I'm pretty sure. If you guys are new to this series, you send me your team on Twitter at EvanTanaka10. I'll be doing a post like you guys see right here. I did a post, I said I'm looking for teams for my next I Rate and Improve Your Team series. If you want to be in the video, put your team and MT amount down below. So if that's what you guys want to do, you follow my Twitter, EvanTanaka10, and you can tweet underneath my tweet, and basically you'll be entered into the next video. Not entered, like you'll be in the next video. We're going to go through and rate all of these teams that were sent under my team. So let's get on to the video. If you guys are new here, I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe down below. I post 2 to 3 My Team videos every single day, and I give some of the best no money spent content, tips, and tricks on the platform. And guys, I do want to say the next video that's coming out is a huge announcement and a big event coming tomorrow. So you want to stick around for that next video coming out in the next couple of hours. Let's get on to the video. So first team here, so I'm Raps fan, and he has 265 KMT, and this is his team to work with. So basically, I'm going to give my rating out of 10 and then give some improvements as well. So the rating out of 10, he's got Gary Payton, Klay Thompson, AK, Melo, KGs. That's a really good starting lineup. Bench is really solid as well. I'm going to give this team a solid 8.5 out of 10. That bench is definitely a lot weaker, but still very good. But I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. With 265K, improvements I'd make is that backup shooting guard position. I would get James Harden over Vince Carter. I think he's just a lot better than Vince Carter, and he's only about 60,000 MT, probably 50,000 MT. So you still have about 200K left to work with. I think Jared Wallace is really good as well, so you can keep him there. And then power forward and center, I keep George Mikan, but for power forward, there's a bunch of different things you could go, but I would probably go Nicholas Batum. I think he's better for that 4 spot than Josh Smith, and he's about 40 KMT as well. So those are the 2 upgrades I'd make for Raps fans team. So thank you for sending your team, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, so next one here is from DK175, and rating out of 10, he's got a very solid starting lineup and a very solid bench. This is a very solid team. I can only give an 8 out of 10, but it is a very, very solid team overall. And with 50 KMT, or you replace Jaylen Brown with Eddie Jones. I would have kept Eddie Jones, or sorry, I would have kept Jaylen Brown, but okay, so Eddie Jones is there. With only 50 KMT, there's not a lot of places you can go with. Honestly, I don't really see an upgraded position. I don't really see one within your price range. I don't think there's one that's even necessary. So I would honestly just keep your MT for season 3, and maybe there'll be some other players to pick up. But with only 50 KMT, there's nothing you can really do. But your team is definitely solid 8 out of 10. So thank you for sending your team. Next team here is from Airman, and this is a screenshot from earlier today, and he has 20 KMT right now, but can grind domination for more. Okay, so 20,000 MT, that's what we're going to work with. This team is solid. It's very solid, but I can only give you a 7.5 out of 10. You do have the guys like Harden, Isaiah Thomas, Rocco, Josh Smith, Mikal Bridges, all really, really solid players. But I feel like that bench, it's good, but I can only give it a 7.5. I feel like you need to improve that Caron Butler, to be honest with you, and I think a perfect player for that is going to be Jonathan Isaac. So I would get Jonathan Isaac there, and then probably you could move Mikal Bridges up and then put Rocco to the backup 4 and then put Jonathan Isaac to the starting 4. That's probably what I would do. So I would put Mikal Bridges starting, put Rocco back up 3, and then put Mikal Bridges to the 3. So get rid of Caron Butler. I would do that, and then I would get Jonathan Isaac as your backup 3, and then I think you're pretty much good to go with only 20 KMT, but I would definitely try to pick up Jonathan Isaac. That would be a big upgrade for your squad. You got Smart, you got Wang. If you get Jonathan Isaac, those cards are really, really good. You could look at Saddiq Bey over LeBron James. That's probably what I would do as well, is try to get Saddiq Bey over LeBron James. I'd probably start Wang as well, but other than that, I think your team is pretty solid. So thank you, Airman, for sending your team. On to the next one. Next team here is from Levon. Again, apologize if I say your name wrong, but he looks like he's got 20K budget, but he looks like he's got a pretty good team here. He's got Gary Payton, Klay, AK, Dolph, D-Rob. His bench, I'm not the biggest fan of Clyde Drexler, but Paul Silas is good, Jonathan Isaac, Vucevic, and Steve Francis. Okay, so what I would do is I would get rid of Vucevic, and I'd pick up Wang ZZ, or I'd pick up ZZ Wang. Is it Wang ZZ or ZZ Wang? I think it's ZZ Wang. I'd pick up him over Nikola Vucevic. I think he's better overall. And then I would sell Clyde Drexler and pick up James Harden. He is much, much better in my opinion. If you like Clyde, you definitely can keep Clyde, but those are only improvements I would say, especially with only a 20K budget. But if you sell Clyde Drexler, you'll be able to definitely afford James Harden. And in my opinion, he is way better than Clyde Drexler, but I would definitely get ZZ Wang over Nikola Vucevic. He's definitely better. But other than that, I forgot to rate your team, but before, if you make any of those changes, if you don't make any of those changes, your team is probably a solid 8.5 out of 10. If you get Harden and you get ZZ, it's still an 8.5 out of 10, but it's definitely a lot better team in my opinion. So thank you, Levon. Again, apologize for saying your name wrong. Thank you for sending your team on to the next one. Next team here is from Francisco Frias. Again, apologize if I say your name wrong. He's got 440k, he'll have around 500k after redeem auctions. Move JB to starters and Harden to bench for more offense. Thinking of replacing Harden with Drazen, I wouldn't do that. Any more tips or suggestion? I made it all the way to Pink Diamond tier, but couldn't get 11 wins to advance. Thank you. It is only 10 wins to get to Pink Diamond, or sorry, to get from Pink Diamond to Opal, but you didn't get it. Okay, so rating out of 10. Got to do that first. A very solid team. I think I can only give you an 8, but I think it's very close to an 8.5 out of 10. And you do have 450k, let's just say. I think that starting small forward is a position we're going to need to upgrade, and I think a great position for only about 35,000 KMT is AK. AK, Andre Kirilenko fits perfectly with that lineup because you got John Morant and James Harden, who are, James Harden's a good defender. John Morant's not a good defender, so I think you need that lockdown defender on your starting lineup. You have JB and Jonathan Isaac off your bench. I feel like you need a lock on your starting lineup, so I think AK for only 35 KMT fits perfectly into that lineup, and then you still have around 400k left. You could pick up a Klay Thompson instead of Jaylen Brown, and that's probably what I would recommend for you to do to make your team a lot better, is have Klay coming off that bench. I feel like that'll help your bench offense a lot. And guys, remember, you don't have to have your starting lineup doesn't mean it has to be your best 5 players. It doesn't mean it has to have all the best players in the lineup. Sometimes actually having a Klay Thompson come off the bench or your best player come off the bench is actually more beneficial to bring him in against their weaker opponents, right? Or weaker team, right? Because if they come in with the worst bench 5 and you have Klay Thompson's gonna be able to cook. But if you play against the starting lineup, he may have AK, Giannis, Paul Silas. Like, he may be able to lock you down on the starting lineup, but off the bench, maybe he has a weaker defensive lineup. So I would get rid of Jaylen Browning, pick up Klay Thompson, and then instead of Eddie Jones, I pick up AK. And other than that, I mean, you could replace Glenn Robinson with Nicholas Batum, but that is spending a decent amount of MT, and then even Miles Turner. So I think get George Mikan over Miles Turner. I think he's just better in every single way. But definitely pick up AK-47 at that starting 3. If that's all you want to do, your team is fine, and then you could look to sell Jaylen Brown, pick up Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's actually pretty cheap right now, and then you could also pick up Nicholas Batum and George Mikan. So take those suggestions into mind, but other than that, your team is very solid. So thank you, Francisco, for sending your team on to the next one. Next team here is from Sean Matthew, and he has 300 KMT. Rocco and Gary Harris are involved, by the way. I use players I'm comfortable with, mainly looking for defense paint mashers, forwards, and centers. Fast point guards, high 3-point shooting guards, and 3-and-D small forwards. Open to suggestions. Okay, so if you said 3-and-D, that's the first thing that caught my mind. 3-and-D small forwards. So your backup small forward looks to be Chris Mullin. So instead of Chris Mullin, unless you really want a sharpshooter, I would definitely get Mikal Bridges. He is the ultimate 3-and-D small forward in this game, and that's apparently what you're looking for. Now, I think there's some suggestions, like you're saying, mainly looking for paint mashing forwards and centers. And you have like Dennis Rodman, Tyson Chandler, DeAndre Ayton, and Josh Smith. Now, I personally don't play that way, and I personally don't think that's the best way to play. But if that's how you want to play, I'm just going to give you suggestions for what you said. Now, am I recommending everyone to go buy paint mashing centers and go buy, centers who can't shoot? No, because I personally think you should have stretch bigs. But if you don't want to have a stretch big, then for you, suggestions wise, I'm going to go a bit different. But for 3-and-D small forwards, Rocco is perfect. But I think for that backup small forward needs to be Mikal Bridges. If you want to run Chris Mullin at the 2, you could definitely run Chris Mullin at the 2 with Mikal Bridges at the 3. But if your suggestion is high 3-point shooting guards, there you go. High 3-point shooting guards is Chris Mullin. He's a very high 3-point shooting guard. He got 96.3 Hall of Fame sniper. And then that 3-and-D small forwards is Mikal Bridges. You said you're looking for defensive paint mashing forwards and centers. So forwards, if you're looking for paint mashing and defensive rebounding, or like just rebounding, or no rebounding, just defensive and paint mashing, you could look at, I guess you just want a tall power forward. I don't think you should have Tyson Chandler. There's got to be a better masher. Like, I would go Ha Sing Jing. If he's 7'3" or 4, and he's 7'3" or 4, so I would go him over Tyson Chandler as well. Dennis Rodman, I would replace him as well. It's hard to get like a paint mashing 4. paint mashing fours. Like, there's no paint mashing fours in my opinion. I mean, if you're really looking for paint mashing fours, you could go Serge Ibaka over Dennis Rodman. He gives you more paint mashing and more defense than Dennis Rodman, in my opinion. And same thing with Josh Smith if you want to keep in for paint mashing. Again, not recommending to run this lineup, but that's how you want to run it. So for your lineup, I would keep your starting lineup the same if that's what you want to do with, again, the paint mashing and defensive centers and fours. And then I would move Chris Mullin to the backup too, and then I would get Mikal Bridges for the 3-and-D small forward. I think he's really good. And then I would go Serge Ibaka over Dennis Rodman, and then I would go Ha-Seong Jing over Tyson Chandler. Way better in paint mashing in my opinion. Also, instead of DeAndre Ayton, I would go ZZ Wang. I mean, he's literally 7 foot tall, so taller than DeAndre Ayton, and he can shoot a 3-ball, so that's a suggestion you may want to try out. He definitely gives you the defensive and the paint mashing, but he also has an 8'9" 3-ball. So I would recommend him for over DeAndre Ayton, but if you really want to go DeAndre Ayton, then that's okay. So thank you, Sean Matthew, for sending in your team. On to the next one. Next team here is from Blackstar. Don't know if I said that right, or MJ Castro is his @ So he looks like he's got a very, very solid team, and he looks like, yeah, he does have a very good team here. Rating out of 10. I mean, the starting lineup is not the best starting lineup of the game, but I mean, Gary Payton, in my opinion, is the best point guard. Klay Thompson, best shooting guard. Paul George, best small forward. Paul Silas, like probably top 3, top 5 power forward. And then you also got KG, probably top 2, top 3 center in the game. Your bench is definitely really good as well. I think I'm going to have to give this team a 9 out of 10. It's very, very solid. And if you like Marcus Smart, which a lot of people do, I think this team's really good. You also didn't say your MT amount, but I'm pretty sure you got 185k MT. So I give your team a 9.0 out of 10. Very, very solid team. If I were to give a suggestion, I would just pick up Dolph over Paul Silas. I think that's going to give you a little bit more offense on that starting lineup. You already got GP, Klay, and Paul George, who are amazing good defenders. And having Kevin Garnett, I feel like you need a better shooting power forward than Paul Silas. So I would pick up Dolph Shays for around 130k. You could probably get him for, which is really, really good for Dolph. Dolph is insanely good, and he's going to fit perfectly into your lineup. But if you don't want to get him, you have a really good, like, not free team, but you have a really good, this team is perfectly fine as a 9 out of 10. But I feel like getting Dolph Shays over Paul Silas is a pretty big upgrade for your specific lineup. So thank you, MJ Castro, for sending in your team. On to the next one. Next team here is from C4 Opening. He says he has 4,000 MT, and he's got 200k MT in the auction house. So I guess we'll work with 200,000 MT. I'm assuming that's what you want me to do. But rating out of 10, not the biggest fan of Trae Young, but I'm assuming you have Trae Young for a reason. That bench lineup is really, really good. Like, your bench is better than your starting lineup, in my opinion. Like, Gary Payton better than Trae Young, James Harden better than Jaylen Brown, Jonathan Isaac pretty similar to Mikal Bridges, Batum, AK, depends what you need, George Mikan. So I give your bench a better rating out of 10. I think I can only give this team an 8 out of 10 because of Trae Young and Jaylen Brown. There's definitely 8.5. I'm going to give your team 8.5. I just feel like your Trae Young really hurt you. So for me, that's the position I'm going to say to upgrade. If you want to go really cheap, I would just get Marcus Smart. In my opinion, he's just better than Trae Young in every single aspect. If you want to go a bit more expensive, there's always Isaiah Thomas. There's that De'Aaron Fox. Both really, really good cards. I mean, you should be able to get Steve Francis because you got GP. Steve Francis is better than Trae Young in my opinion. And other than that, I mean, you do have 200k MT, but with your kind of team, I don't really feel like there's any other massive upgrades you need to make. So honestly, I would just try to figure out that point guard position and get rid of Trae Young. But if you don't want to get rid of Trae Young, because I feel like everyone that has Trae Young is a big Trae Young fan, or really likes the card. But if you're looking to get rid of Trae Young, I would get Marcus Smart, Steve Francis, or De'Aaron Fox, or Isaiah Thomas. In my opinion, all better than Trae Young. Thank you, C4, for sending your team. On to the next one. So I'm definitely going to pronounce this wrong. Is it Fiji God? I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. He's got Steve Francis, draws on. Okay, that's a pretty good starting lineup. In the bench, I'm not the biggest fan of Brandon Ingram. Eddie Jones is solid, and Rafe LaFrance is okay. So I'm going to give this team an 8 out of 10. You definitely got some good players, but I feel like you got some pretty weak holes in this lineup as well. And I feel like if you have 1 million MT, I just don't think you should have Brandon Ingram on your lineup. And an easy budget replacement for Brandon Ingram is just going to be Mikal Bridges. He's an amazing 3-and-D small forward. He's one of the best defenders in the game and can shoot the ball pretty well and has a pretty good ball handle. So I think Mikal Bridges is way better than Brandon Ingram for only about 4,000, 5,000 MT. Definitely an improvement for me. And then I think ZZ Wang is literally better than the Rafe LaFrance, so you could also pick up him for about 1,000 to 2,000, maybe 3,000 MT, because a lot of people know he's good. I mean, if you have 1 million MT, you could make your lineup like completely better, but I'm assuming you want to keep some of your MT. but I might look to pick up a James Harden instead of Eddie Jones and then replace him over Drazen Petrovic and then put Drazen to the backup too. I feel like James Harden will make your lineup really, really good and give you that really good player in your team, because there's no player in your team that's like exceptionally good scoring wise. Like, you don't have a Klay Thompson, a James Harden, a Paul George, a Kevin Durant. You don't have one of those, a Donovan Mitchell, which doesn't mean you don't have to, but I'm just saying I feel like a James Harden for only 50,000-60,000 MT could really improve your team. So you definitely could look at picking up that Diamond Mystic James Harden, but if not, I would definitely just get rid of that Brandon Ingram and get Mikal Bridges, and then look to pick up ZZ Wang over Rafe LaFrance. And other than that, your team is very, very solid. So thank you, Fiji God, for sending your team on to the next one. Next team here is from Hudson, and he's got a pretty hard image to see. Let me see. I mean, I can see it. It's just a little hard to see. He's got John Morant, Devin Booker, Melo. He's got Rocco, George Mikan. Bench is pretty solid as well, and he also has George Gerving and Caron Butler as well. I don't think I'd play them in this lineup. 169 KMT. Okay, so 170 KMT to work with in this team. Rating out of 10 if you want to give me that first. It's a solid team, but I think I can only give you a 7.5 out of 10. It's definitely a good, solid team. Nothing too crazy though, but it's a definitely good, solid team. The improvements I'm looking to make is the starting shooting guard position for Devin Booker. I feel like Devin Booker is okay, but I don't think he's anything too special. And for me, what I would do is probably look to get the upgraded James Harden. I think that Amethyst is good, but I feel like that Diamond is really a big step up. So what I would do is get rid of the Amethyst James Harden and get rid of your two shooting guards, Devin Booker and James Harden. Pick up Diamond Mystic James Harden for only about 50,000-60,000 MT. I think that's an amazing price for you. And you have 120 KMT left to work with to get a backup shooting guard. I feel like that's all you really need to do. And for me, I would get Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell is still really, really good. And other than that, I mean, you could get rid of Glenn Robinson and pick up a Batum or an AK. You definitely could do that. So yeah, I probably will recommend that as well. Try to pick up an AK or Batum for that backup 4, and then you probably want to start him over Rocco. Other than that, I like your 2 centers. I like your 2 point guards. I like your 2 small forwards, and I like your Rocco, but maybe pick up a Batum or an AK. And I like your centers, but definitely I feel like that shooting guard position you need to improve a little bit. So I'd go Diamond James Harden and Donovan Mitchell as your 2 shooting guards. Those are 2 great scoring options and can play some defense. So thank you, Hudson, for sending in your team. On to the next one. Last team of the video, guys, here is from KJ, and he's got 170 KMT and opens his suggestions for improvement, and he replaced Rocco with Isaac. So in this team, where you see Rocco is now Jonathan Isaac and 170 KMT. Okay, so really, really solid team. I'm gonna have to give this team an 8 out of 10. It's a little bit better than that team we just looked at because the fact is AK, KG, Batum, Mikal Bridges. So very, very solid there. What you could possibly do if you have, 170 KMT, I feel like, again, like I said for the last guy, I feel like improving that Amethyst to Diamond James Harden does make a big upgrade. So I'd move Eddie Jones to the backup 2 and get that Mystic James Harden for about 50,000 MT for your starting lineup, and you still have about 120k left over, and I think you're good to go. To be honest, I don't think there's any more improvements you need to make, especially with season 3 right around the corner as of being it tomorrow. I feel like you're pretty much good to go. KJ or Kelvon. I suck with names, by the way, but I'm just going to call you KJ. I think you're personally fine to go if you just get that Mystic James Harden and you move Eddie Jones to the backup 2 and James Harden to the starting 2. And other than that, you got a really solid teams. I would just hold off for now and see what happens in Season 3. So that is it for the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure if you want to be in a future video, I'll be posting a tweet saying, I'm looking for teams for my next episode. Send me your team and MT amount down below. Put your team and how much MT you have down below underneath that tweet, and you'll be in the next video. So make sure to follow my Twitter, EvanTanaka10, and you have to turn post notifications on so you can actually know when the tweet comes out. And just make sure to send your team and MT amount down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.